Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn. Through the storm, through the night.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Love Them Both. This is a has been a show. This is a talk show, and with documentaries on the what I've called the social problems of our world and of our time. But that's an understatement. Our problems are growing, and they're becoming what I have to use the term apocalyptic now. Problems, borrowing a term from the book of Revelation, the Bible, in which God sends, who loves mankind, sends plagues on mankind to get us to our attention and to get us to repent so he can save us. He's coming, he wants to save the world, not destroy it. So the solution to our apocalyptic problems is moral and spiritual. And the nature of the problems, the world problems becoming more apocalyptic in nature, kind of confirms that. We are dealing with spiritual things here. You'll see a pregnancy, we're dealing with pregnancy health, see things here. You'll see a pregnancy helpline on the screen from time to time throughout, where you can get, if you're pregnant and scared, you can get counseling. It'll put you in contact with a free and confidential counselor anywhere in the United States, 24/7. If you're pregnant and scared, don't be frozen by your anxiety. Get help. Call one of these counselors. Get a counselor through these centers and let them help walk with you through it. You don't have to be alone. If you have guilt, suffering from past abortion, there are counselors who will help you deal with that too. And last, they mentioned they will counsel you concerning adoption. Adoption is a parenting option. It's not easy. Pregnancy, giving birth is not easy. Abortion is worst of all, because nothing really good comes out of it. Counseling is challenging, but it is a parenting decision because it's for the good of the child. The Bible says God says children are a gift of God, but you remember, when you're dealing with God, you have to carry everything is not pablum. We have to carry our cross too. Everything comes with a challenge along with the good, so that we can enjoy the good more, basically. We also see a trafficking hotline on the screen from time to time. Girls, if you suspect any prostitution or trafficking going on in your area, you can call that helpline and ask with the information you have, and ask them how you should proceed, if you could proceed with the information that you have. Remember that women and girls being trafficked are getting violence from their pimps and from their customers, being thrown out of the cars, God forbid, murdered. Massage parlors are possibilities to look at. I've said that for boys and men, boys and men have a choice. I believe God has put in the male heart two things. There are two things. He has put in the male heart the desire to be a protector of women and children. And on the other hand, there's the natural selfishness that we have, and that can lead to lusting after women, wanting to use them sexually for selfish reasons and hurting them and not protecting them at all. You're going to see this choice in the next educational message, portrayed out as a man walks through these choices. Can you show the control room, show the Defenders video, please?
you grow up, what you'll do and where you'll go. On this road you'll travel far. There's one thing that you can know for sure. Your daddy's here and will love you. Caring and protecting daddy's girl is what I'll do. When your childhood is all through, when you leave and live out on your own, your daddy's here and will love you. Caring and protecting daddy's girl is what I'll do.
Pornography is not victimless. Real men defend women and children no matter whose daughters they are. Become a defender today.
There you are, everyone. Any man or boy can make that choice to protect women. It's in your heart to do it if only you will follow it. If you have gotten into pornography, you've got some backpedaling to do, and I recommend the way to do that is by seeking the wisdom of God and help to get out of that, so you can follow. You'll never regret following the instinct God has put in you to be a man protecting women. That's a step that anyone can take toward becoming a man. You may not have a job, you may not have an education, you may not have much wisdom, you think, to being a man. Being a man can be frightening, challenging, a lot of responsibility there. But one thing you can do, I believe virtually everyone can do, every male can do, is make the decision he's going to protect women from sex, from himself in any way, and that's you're on the road to becoming a man. Then there's a bigger plan. This points to the broader plan of the Ten Commandments behind me and God's plan. God will show you how to become a man. In fact, if you start following Him and studying His Word and learning from Christianity, you can learn. He will show you how to, step by step, how to get the wisdom to be a man. Women are growing up today. Women are saying today, where are the men? Because boys are growing up so wild. Well, the answer is that the Ten Commandments and the Word of God will teach you how to become a man if you don't know how to. For women have the desire of the heart, according to one feminine author. One of the 5 desires of a woman's heart is to rescue a man, to help a man by making his life better because he had her than he would be without her. Well, women don't throw away that purpose. You can fulfill your purpose by not compromising sexually either. And as I said, the example I like to use, the power of women obeying the Ten Commandments is that the Wild West was won when women came west and brought community with them because they did not compromise with the Ten Commandments morality of God. Now, Alabama has passed a nearly total ban on abortion, and it prohibits abortion. It makes abortion a felony for the abortionist. The woman is not held criminally or civilly liable for an abortion. It makes an abortionist criminally liable with severe penalties, though, for performing abortion, except in the case of where it may be to save a mother's life. The Planned Parenthood opposes Alabama's nearly total abortion ban. We're going to ask why in a minute. But before we do move on to that, let me ask the control room to bring up one more message, the message from the unborn. This is why Alabama's law protects all unborn, is because it's a human being. Can the control room show a message for the unborn, from the unborn?
You don't have to say anything. I know where I am and why I was brought here. I know that in the next few minutes, someone's going to call my mom's name and take us to the room where I will be killed. But while there's still time, I want to thank you for caring about me when no one else did. Even though you were not able to save me, you did the best you could. The only thing I ask is that you keep fighting for every baby and never stop believing that one day you will find the way to save them all. But now my time is up, so please pray for me. I'm trying to be brave. You know, I think I would have been a pretty good little boy.
Well, as I said, Planned Parenthood opposes Alabama's nearly total ban on abortion that's protecting African American women. Why do they oppose it? ABC News reported that 3/4 of the women affected by the ban were described as poor and black. Well, does Planned Parenthood want to help these women, for these women to have abortions because they're poor or because they're black? Let's see. White people immediately held a concert to raise money for Planned Parenthood to keep on aborting black babies in Alabama. Does Planned Parenthood want to abort Alabama's black babies because they're poor or because they're black? Let's answer the question hiding in their history, and that's where we're going to use the reference. That's the illusion, grand illusion of Planned Parenthood, as the name of this book is by George Grant. I'm going to use this as a source for a reference here. Time and again, Planned Parenthood claimed taxpayer money for birth control was needed to reduce abortions. When the Trump administration denied $60 million for birth control to organizations that perform, promote, or refer girls for abortions, which Planned Parenthood does, Planned Parenthood had a choice to make. They could either stop performing abortions keep on providing birth control, which they say is needed to reduce abortions, or they can keep doing abortions in Alabama. Well, they are choosing to keep doing abortions in Alabama. So actions speak louder than words. Planned Parenthood does not want to reduce abortions in Alabama. That's the first illusion among the grand illusions, that the illusion that Planned Parenthood wants to help low-income black women. It does not. The abortion patients who were interviewed, the two black women interviewed in an abortion clinic in Alabama, neither one of them had financial reasons. They were aborting because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to have another baby. Or they didn't want someone else telling them they had to choose the baby. They have swallowed the rhetoric promoting abortion, that it's a choice you can make. So abortion advocates, with the help of NBC News, just made their most outrageous claim. They insinuate that Alabama's abortion ban is racist because it disproportionately impacts women of color. The real discrimination is that Planned Parenthood, the real evil is Planned Parenthood is using abortion to kill African American babies in the name of helping the black community. Okay. Why? Well, this goes to get the answer, we have to go back and to look into the history, hidden history and motives of the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margret Sanger. She was born in 1879, founded the American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood. Daniel 12:4 was a prophetic book, spoke of Daniel's prophecy that Daniel should keep his prophecy should be sealed until the time of the end. And it described that time the time of the end, as many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. That describes our time. Knowledge being, many going to and fro describes the rapid transit we have today. The knowledge being increased is the knowledge explosion we have today. No, it says knowledge should be increased, not wisdom. Wisdom is different than knowledge. Wisdom is the enlightened understanding of what is true or false, what is true or right. Without wisdom, knowledge is madness, becomes madness. And that's what happened in the 20th centuries when powerful pseudo-sciences dominated the early 20th century. Darwinian evolution, you've all heard of that. Marxism, fascism, Freudism, remember that? These false sciences were offshoots of the powerful writings of Thomas Malthus, who persuaded an entire generation of influential people, scientists, intellectuals, social reformers, that the world was would be facing an imminent economic crisis caused by unchecked human reproduction. Margret Sanger was mesmerized by the pseudo-scientific racism of eugenics, that the solution to overpopulation would be to restrict reproduction of the unfit in inferior stocks. Eugenics, the word itself means good birth, as in Eugene, Oregon. Eugenics was the pseudoscience to assist evolution of the fit races of mankind and restrict or prevent reproduction of the inferior racial stocks as they saw them. Eugenicists unashamedly espoused the white supremacy of Northern Europeans. Their goal, like Hitler, was to purify the bloodlines of every non-Aryan. Red, yellow, black, white were all noxious in their sight, as they were in Hitler. Margret Sanger was convinced that inferior races were mere human weeds and a menace to civilization. She came to regard organized charity to ethnic minorities and the poor as encouraging the proliferation of defectives and delinquents. Sanger learned for an end to the Christian era of Christian benevolence. Thus, Margret Sanger founded the American Birth Control League to promote eugenics by promoting policies to restrict reproduction of the inferior races, Hispanics, blacks, Asians, Southeast Europeans, by prohibiting racial immigration, by segregation and internment camps for the unfit that prevented intermarriage, to prevent intermarriage. And what we're going to concentrate on here today is by birth control, abortion, and sterilization to prevent reproduction of what she believed were the inferior races. And this was powerful in the early 20th century. Feminist author Germaine Greer wrote, by the 1920s, eugenics concepts were accepted by all shades of societies, liberals, radicals, conservatives, and it had gained free rein in the popular culture. Some 40 states passed laws like forced sterilization for so-called mental defectives or uneducated black women on welfare. Nazi concentration camps are believed to be inspired by the eugenics asylums proposed by the American Birth Control League. Even President Theodore Roosevelt and the Supreme Court of the United States were caught up in the era. In 1902, the conservative Roosevelt appointed the otherwise good Judge Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr. In 1927, his Supreme Court, as Chief Justice, upheld a Virginia law that authorized the forced sterilization, authorized the state to surgically, forcibly sterilize certain so-called mental defectives, quote unquote, without their consent. Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes was famous for the statement, I should say infamous now, the 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. This was a powerful movement in the first half of the 20th century. Funding for eugenics for white supremacy came from America's great industrialists, and it still does. the Rockefeller, Ford, Carnegie, and Mellon foundations. Rockefeller subsidiaries were involved in the production and research for the production of the Nazi zircon gas to kill the Jews. Today, it's still involved in eugenic research, producing the abortion pill, a subsidiary producing the abortion pill RU486 to target more poor minority communities like the blacks in Alabama. Now, eugenics was not without its critics. In the early 20th century, the great Christian spokesman and apologist G.K. Chesterton fired on relenting salvos against eugenics. For one, turning common decency, such as turning common decency and commendable deeds like Christian charity into social crimes. For another, for combining a hardening of heart with a softening of mind, because eugenics thinking is not true, is pseudoscience. But he was drowned out, this great apologist was drowned out by the din of popular acceptance. People simply wanted to justify their own racial prejudice. So, thus, Margret Sanger began the American Birth Control League, which later became, after World War II, became Planned Parenthood, to target non-Aryan minorities and published the Birth Control Review. The American Birth Control League shared board members and articles with Nazi eugenicists. In 1933, her Birth Control Review published an article by Ernest Rudin, Hitler's director of eugenic sterilization and the founder of the Nazi Society for Racial Hygienity. The Birth Control League and Margret Sanger praised and defended the Third Reich's racial programs. And therein came a turning point. After the Nazis gave eugenics, birth control, and racial purity a bad name by the World War II Holocaust, Sanger had to do something into her image and do something fast. She took a suggestion that came from the birth control community to change birth control for minorities to the gentler term of family planning. To change the harsher American Birth Control League to the gentler name Planned Parenthood. This is the grand illusion I'm referring to here. George Grant refers to here, changing her image, and it was successful. Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, and Margret Sanger all were collectively responsible for killing more people in the 20th century than ever in history. But Hitler, Stalin have all went down with their reputations, were recognized as evil. But Margret Sanger's changed her image, and the formation of Planned Parenthood today survived, and it continues to kill more than all the others combined, than Hitler, Stalin, all the others combined through abortion. So let's focus in on racism and the birth control clinics. Margret Sanger began her movement by placing birth control clinics in minority neighborhoods to limit reproduction. Her first birth control clinic opened in 1916 in an impoverished section of Brooklyn to target immigrants, Southern European, Slavs, and Jews. As the American Birth Control League grew, she began to target other what they considered dysgenic races, including blacks, Hispanics, American Indians, Jews. She wasted no time in getting started, and she really did get a foothold going there. In 1939, they designed the Negro Project. The mass of Negroes, she wrote, particularly in the South, still breed carelessly and disastrously, more than whites. The project aimed to hire 3 or 4, quote unquote, colored ministers, quote unquote, preferably with social service backgrounds and engaging personalities, to travel to black enclaves and propagandize for birth control. Later she wrote, the successful, quote, Margret Sanger wrote, the successful approach to the Negro is through the religious appeal. We do not want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten that idea out. The operation was an attempt to get blacks to cooperate in their own extermination. Now, the Negro Project was quite successful in one way. Its genocidal intentions were carefully camouflaged between several layers of social service rhetoric and organizational expertise. And like a Pied Piper of Hamelin, many blacks across the country happily fell into line. Soon clinics across the South were distributing contraceptives to blacks. But let me note though that was 1939. Abortion was not yet legal in 1939. According to Life Dynamics documentary, Alpha 21, without legal abortion, birth control alone did not produce the limits on the black population that Sanger's American Birth Control League hoped. And I say the reason, and I want to point this out, birth control is obviously, think about it, birth control is the tool of the devil, that it promotes fornication. Think about it. What does birth control tell you? That one thing, you can have sex. One of the things that always held young people about when I was growing up, made them afraid to have sex, was the fear of causing a pregnancy. Well, birth control promises to remove that consequence, taking that fear away. But not only that, just by telling it to teenagers, giving it to teenagers, you're implicitly making it sound okay to commit fornication. Makes fornication sound okay. Then when Roe v. Wade came in 1973, destruction of the population really took off with legal abortion. After that, after Roe's in the 1970s, the birth control, Planned Parenthood expanded into the North and West, like the Negro Project. It was racial in character, not geographic. Followed the same guidelines as the Negro Project. Density of birth control clinics was closely related to the proportion of minorities in the community. In the 1980s, a telling thing happened. They shifted their priority to school-based clinic. Planned Parenthood now, instead of targeting minority communities, now they were targeting inner-city minority neighborhoods, minority neighborhood schools with birth control and complex sex education. Of more than 100 school-based clinics nationwide, none have been in substantially all-white schools. None have been in suburban middle-class schools. And the results speak for themselves. They've had a disastrous effect on black youth. Today we know, and we'll look at some figures in a minute, but today we know that in many communities like New York and the big cities, more black babies are aborted than are born. And this is why. These schools in these communities were targeted, black schools, minority schools were targeted with school-based clinics. In 1987, some black leaders began to catch on. In 1987, a group of black ministers, parents, and educators sued the Chicago Board of Education. They charged that the clinics and birth control clinics were not only violating state laws against fornication by implicitly giving children permission with birth control to commit fornication, but they are, and this is very important, a discrimination against blacks. They are a calculated and a pernicious effort, the Sioux charged, pernicious effort to destroy the very fabric of family life among black parents and children. in order to control the black population. And the results have been disastrous. Black communities today, in most black communities today, abortions have outstripped births as much as 3 to 1. And that's where the targeting took place, in the school-based clinics with the young people. In legal abortion was has been a magic gem for Planned Parenthood to attack the black population. To attack the black population. I'm wondering here, for the control room, I forget. Did we show the Ku Klux Klan clip in this show?
Decided to create an environment where they would convince the blacks to severely limit the number of children they were going to have, and thereby commit race suicide.
We have now reached a point in this country that the abortion industry at this point kills as many African American people every 4 days as the Klan killed in 150 years. And you can truly say the most dangerous place for an African American to be is in the womb of their African American mother.
Abortion is the #1 killer of African Americans. Abortion kills more blacks than all other deaths combined. Since 1973, more than 40 million unborn children have been legally killed in this country. Of those, more than 14 million of them were black. African American women make up only 13% of American women of childbearing age, yet 35% of all abortions are performed on black women. The abortion rate among black women is 3 times higher than that of white women. At this rate of abortion, our future looks dim. Join me. Take a stand against this devastating atrocity. Abortion kills. We must protect all of our children, no matter how small their bodies may be. I'm Day Gardner, Director of Black Americans for Life.
Email bal@nrlc.org.
Okay, there you are, folks. That is why Planned Parenthood opposes the Alabama nearly total abortion ban. Most of those black women would go on, many of them would go on to have their children, as the clinic director said would happen. Back to this school-based clinics, I just discussed how a group of black ministers and parents and educators, their suit as plaintiffs against the Chicago Board of Education, they charged that not only did the clinics violate state fornication laws, because birth control, giving birth control people implies that you can commit fornication. See, what they do in comprehensive education in schools, they say you shouldn't have fornication, but if you shouldn't have sex, but if you do, use protection. Well, what does that do to the young mind? It just gives them permission and the false sense of security that they will be safe from consequences by birth control. So birth control is merely a devil's tool for promoting fornication. So, parents in Minneapolis, several ladies interviewed in the book here, said that Planned Parenthood school clinics and birth control with comprehensive education seemed like a good idea at first, because they said there are always some girl getting in trouble. That meant getting pregnant. There are always a few girls in every generation getting in trouble. And the clinics with promoting the use of birth control seemed like it would be good. It would help them. But the opposite happened. The truth is, say these women, getting in trouble is normal now. The birth control and comprehensive promoted sex among the teenagers, and the natural thing happened. You have many more pregnancies. So as the women said, getting in trouble now is normal in the schools now. And one lady says, look, I get scared sometimes. It's like we've opened a Pandora's box. The information my daughter has been given is as bad as the Ku Klux Klan, she said. Maybe worse because it's slick and sophisticated, dolled up with statistics and surveys, but it's ugly as apartheid. It's apartheid, she says. Remember, in most communities now, black communities now, abortions outstrip births by as much as 3-to-1. Basically because of birth control followed by, in combination with legal abortion. Birth control gives you the permission to have sex, fornication, and when you get pregnant, abortion is the remedy, is there. Legal abortion is the remedy for it. And legal abortion has been sold to the minority communities, and it's happening to the Hispanics too, to reduce, not have more children than you can afford, to have children, not have children you don't want, for whatever the reason, for various reasons, because not to have the inconvenience, carrying your cross of having another child, whatever the reasons. But it turns into, like Pied Piper, following these excuses really for race suicide, to commit race suicide. So we have racism and abortion. Various studies shows that as birth control becomes more accessible, has shown unwanted pregnancies increase, and that's what I'm saying here. And when unwanted pregnancies increase, the demand for legal abortion increases. Wow, this is the devil's, remember the devil's tools to promote fornication. Parenthood is to promote legal abortion for genocide, to eliminate blacks. The Health and Human Services statistics show, their figures show, as of the writing of this book, blacks composed 11% of the population, but they accounted for, were having up to 43% of the abortions. And the Health and Human Services figures showed that Hispanics compose 18% of the populations, but already at the time the writing of Grand Illusions, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, they accounted for 11% of the abortions, and so it goes. The National Academy of Sciences are figures a little more conservative. They show that 19% of the population are minorities, but the minorities account disproportionately for 32% of the abortions. So Planned Parenthood, birth control, its strategy of birth control and using legal abortions have permitted wholesale slaughter. Let's see. I wonder what the controlman, can you show how much time we have left, please? $16 minutes, 40 minutes in. Okay, we're at 40 minutes, okay. Let me ask you then to conclude by showing the message for the unborn PSA one more time. Come back to me and we'll sign off, please.
You don't have to say anything. I know where I am and why I was brought here. I know that in the next few minutes, someone's going to call my mom's name and take us to the room where I will be killed. But while there's still time, I want to thank you for caring about me when no one else did. Even though you were not able to save me, you did the best you could. The only thing I ask is that you keep fighting for every baby and never stop believing that one day you will find the way to save them all. But now my time is up, so please pray for me. I'm trying to be brave. You know, I think I would have been a pretty good little boy.
So there you are, everyone. That video that you just saw As I mentioned in an earlier show, I could mention it in closing here. That is a pro-life video based on an emotional argument. I think we have enough time for me to say that the pro-life movement has won the intellectual battle over the unborn, over the fetus. You don't hear, and the other side admits it, you don't hear the abortion people calling the unborn, the fetus, a clump of cells or a product of conception anymore. They don't do that because they've lost the battle that the public knows through research, through medical advances. It is a human being. And that's why we need a strict law protecting human beings in the Alabama abortion ban. But without the intellectual arguments, the pro-abortion people are going to purely emotional arguments. The problem is, and we can't change this. We can't escape emotional arguments. We'll either deal with it or be trampled by it. And so that's why we saw this first video by Life Dynamics of an emotional argument against abortion, because we're going to use them too to answer the emotional arguments forthcoming from the abortion people for abortion. I mean, how they're passing laws purely on the basis of abortion. In New York, they passed abortion law permitting abortion up to birth and beyond. In a fit of emotion, Governor Mary Cuomo, they draped buildings in New York like I don't know if it was the Empire State Building, in pink for their emotional appeal, but purely emotional arguments. The problem is that for many people, and I hope you are not going to be one of them, many people, emotion is more powerful than the mind, than intellectual, logical reason. So, but we have to deal on their terms, and this video you saw, Message from the Unborn, is the first such production. What else can I say about that? With that, I guess we will close now. We intend to keep moving, making shows, Lord willing. So watch for us. See you next time.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, and I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Take my hand, precious Lord.